Councillors, can I have your attention, please? I welcome you all to this meeting of the Cardinia Shire Council. This meeting started earlier in the day to consider a confidential matter, and I now reconvene the meeting. We will commence the meeting with the following reflection. I would ask those gathered to join us now for a few moments of silence as we reflect on our roles in this chamber. Please use this opportunity for reflection, prayer or thought to focus on our shared intention to work respectfully together for the well-being of our whole community. Thank you, councillors. The Cardinia Shire Council respectfully acknowledges that we are on the traditional land of the Bunurong and the Wurundjeri people and pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Apologies for this evening. We have received an apology for Councillor Davies, and I hope she is travelling well this evening. Minutes of previous meetings. Can I have a motion, please, to adopt the minutes of the previous meetings as listed? Councillor Moore. And a seconder, please. Councillor Cameron. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Declarations of interest. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest to declare? I note there is none, so I'll move forward to ordinary business. The Council conducts its meetings according to a consent agenda. Councillors have advised of the matters for consideration this evening that they wish to discuss or debate. The remaining items will be adopted without discussion. The items withdrawn for tonight's proceedings are as follows. Item 6.1.1, Amendment C238, Glismann Road, panel review, recommendations and adopt amendment. Withdrawn by Councillor Owen. Councillor Owen to move.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following, that Council adopt Amendment C238 card to the Cardinia Planning Scheme with changes as outlined in the report under Section 2.9 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, generally in accordance with Attachment 8, and subsection 2, submit adopted Amendment C238 card to the Minister for Planning for approval under Section 31 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. I'll now go back to the mover to speak to this item first.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Ross. It is a bit of a milestone moment tonight, particularly for the residents affected by this amendment, the landowners of Glismann Road. I just want to briefly outline the history because it is important. At the meeting on the 19th of August 2019, Council resolved to seek authorisation to prepare and exhibit Planning Scheme Amendment C238 card from the Minister for Planning. Council received authorisation from the Minister for Planning to prepare Amendment C238 on 23rd of April 2020, subject to conditions. So the amendment was exhibited from 19th of July to the 14th of September 2020. 16 submissions were received, and on the 15th of February last year, Council resolved to refer all submissions to a ministerial planning panel. A planning panel was held on the 4th of May 2021 to the 7th of May 2021, with the final day of the hearing being on the 11th of October 2021. I actually listened to that meeting online. The panel report was received on the 4th of January, with a panel report resubmitted on the 25th of January following some minor typo changes. So what does this amendment propose to do? Rezone the land within Glismann Road area from rural living zone and general residential zone to the neighbourhood residential zone that recognises the natural topography, visual sensitivity and landscape features of the area. Also apply a development plan overlay, also to apply a development contributions plan overlay and facilitate the provision of local open space through DCP that would otherwise be collected under clause 53.01 of the Cardinia Planning Scheme and incorporate the Glismann Road Development Contributions Plan. So, it is a milestone moment. Obviously, we had the panel, and I acknowledge there's some owners in the gallery tonight. My understanding was that the panel was well conducted. Each submitter had every opportunity to raise their concerns. It was a difficult time. It was during COVID. It was during lockdowns. It was during some community members or owners in Glismann Road had difficulty accessing their technology to be part of the panel. So the panel was deferred a number of times to allow for everyone to have an opportunity to be part of it. So council agrees with the panel report. There's going to be some changes, and I think those changes are very, very good and will improve the amendment. I just want to acknowledge the people of Glismann Road. This has been a long time coming. They've been living in an era of uncertainty for over 20 years. The Beaconsfield Township strategy in, I think it was 2001, identified Glismann Road for future development. 2001, these residents been wanting some answers so they can work out what they want to do with their life and whether they want to move on or what. So there's been a lot of uncertainty. There's been difficulty selling properties, etc., because of that uncertainty. In 2013, council adopted the Beaconsfield Structure Plan, which once again talked about looking at rezoning in this area, and since then council has been working very hard, but there's been a number of challenges. That being the intersection with Glismann Road and the highway. Without that being funded federally and through council in recent years, we wouldn't be where we are now, where we're very close to getting this amendment approved. So this will go to the minister. And we wait the minister's response. But this is a good result, particularly for those members, the community members and owners of Glismann Road. They get their certainty now, I think, and that's a really good thing for those members of our community. But I'll speak later on in further detail after others speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll now go to the seconder, Councillor Ross, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor. I must say, anyone who's driven down Glismann Road or driven down it for the last 20 years would know it's like walking back in time. It hasn't really changed in all that time. Council have made an attempt to try and do something meaningful in the area. We've been stopped. We've listened to different people. We've tried to put in different changes. It's great to see that there's some finality going to come to this situation with some certainty, as Councillor Owen said. For those people who live there, they haven't known which way they would go with their prime residence that they live in, and what their options were definitely going to be in future. So therefore you just live in this limbo the whole time. It's really sad. It's one of the longest, next to the Kooyurup Motorcycle Club and the Pakenham Auto Club, some of our longest term issues that we've had in the Shire that just hasn't been resolved. So hopefully this will bring it closer to resolving, and will be some certainty around the future. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? Before going back to the mover, I'll just add a couple of words myself, and just to reiterate what Councillor Owen and Councillor Ross have spoken to, but as Councillor Owen pointed out, this has been going on for a long time. From when I first started council here in 2016, they were talking about this being a long-standing issue, and I had residents contact me about their uncertainty and towards this, and a lot of it was, I think there was confusion there towards what was happening and what was possibly being forced on them. But from this process, I can reassure councillors here today that officers have done their utmost to really try and match this into the framework of what Beaconsfield is, and to have a plan of how the development works in this area, in this one pocket that's almost like you drive up there right now and you don't think you're in the middle of Beaconsfield, and Beaconsfield's all around it, to the north, south, east and west. There is this built up area. So this gives the guidelines of how it shall be developed in the future, under guidelines, just so it's not a patchwork in the future. In the future, this will become a patchwork that's even harder to manage, and it's not forcing anyone to develop in any way, shape or form. It's just setting out the guidelines for the best development for the region after all the consultation that's gone forth previously. And so, yes, I'm very happy to sit here and support Councillor Owen in this moving this motion today. Thank you, councillors. I'll now go back to Councillor Owen to summarise.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross, for your comments. I just want to thank, firstly, council officers, Lorna, Teresa and Khan, who joined later on in the piece. But I want to thank particularly Lorna, our planner at council. She's been really working very hard and really trying to engage with residents because she appreciates how challenging it has been for residents. So I want to thank those council officers. The recommended changes that can be grouped under the following headings: panel supportive changes documented in council submission, the removal of 11 Marn Avenue, also a development plan overlay, and there's going to be funding through the DCPs to fund that $70,000 cost of further sort of detailed designs within this amendment. Also, content in the traffic impact assessment report, some changes there, or some possibilities, and also an amendment and update regarding the development contributions plan. It's great when this is developed, and we got to note that it is fragmented. There's multiple owners, smaller land parcels, so similar to the officer structure plan where you've got so many property owners and you're sometimes relying on someone else to develop before you, but it will have some challenges. But some benefits will be the contribution towards the O'Neill Recreation Reserve. Obviously this area will benefit from that Recreation Reserve, and Council in the coming years wants to upgrade O'Neill Recreation Reserve. Also, a great community park abutting the Beaconsfield Primary School, which will have overall community benefits, both for the school community and the wider Beaconsfield community. So this will go to the Minister for approval, and I'm really glad to see that for us to get to here, and I really feel for the residents. I hope they've got some more certainty than they've had then previously, and I hope they can move on with their life in whatever way that will be. So thank you, I move so.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I declare that carried. Thank you. Next up is item 6.2.1, Officer Tennis Club petition response, withdrawn by Councillor Bradford. Councillor Bradford to move.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the officer's recommendation is that council note the petition from the Officer Tennis Club has been received and will be investigated further for further consideration at the June council meeting. Can I please ask for this to be amended to come back to the July council meeting, please?
Yes, Councillor Bradford, I think that's quite fine, yes.
Thank you.
Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Owen. I'll now go back to Councillor Bradford to speak to this item.
Thank you so much. I have withdrawn this item as I feel it's important that I highlight the issues that this club is facing and what they hope to achieve. The club's vision is to achieve a quality, accessible, well-designed tennis facility that is inclusive and accessible for all and accommodates the participation at the club now and into the future. This club has reached its capacity and is struggling to meet the current demand and wants to be able to meet the projected future demand. It sits within a major growth area of our Shire in Officer and is lacking in basic facilities. The building was built in 1935 and provides one toilet for females and one toilet for males. There are no changing facilities or showers, and users are forced to change in their cars if coming straight from school or work, for example. There is currently no disability accessible facilities or accessible access, that's a lot of A's, from the car park to the building or the courts. Tennis is the third most popular club sport activity, with participants ranging from young children to seniors. And this club currently does not provide a safe, accessible and welcoming place for the LGBTIQ+ community, people with disability, our ageing community, the CALL community and anyone in the community in general. This is a council asset and our Officer Tennis Club does not have the funding capacity to complete the works it so desperately requires to meet the needs of the community. It is important for me to note also that this is very important to Officer Tennis Club, and that they have engaged and funded an architect to propose 2 options with estimated costings, which was recently been submitted to Council. I believe what the club is requesting via their petition fits in with the Cardinia Shire Livability Plan's priorities and our shared vision, which is that Cardinia is a livable, resilient community where the environment flourishes and residents are healthy, included and connected. I'll finish for the moment. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bradford. I'll now go to Councillor Owen to speak next.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Bradford for detailing the long history of Officer Tennis Club, and I'm fully aware of that building and the challenges it presents. So I know, being on the Access and Inclusion Committee, that was one of the projects that was being investigated, but unfortunately due to budget, the access upgrade to the toilets was not possible. The current toilets are very unacceptable for anyone, really. So I look forward to a new report coming to the July meeting. I commend the club on their advocacy. They are very good at advocating for their own grants through other ways and methods, and I see they've obviously got commitments as part of this election as well. So hopefully we will know more about those by July, and that report coming to Council. But yeah, that building has not changed really since I tried to play tennis there as a young kid. And that was definitely in the 80s and 90s. So I look forward to that report coming for us to further consider. Also, I've been a strong advocate of Council doing audits of our community facilities, our recreational facilities, which will help in our future budget discussions. And I believe such facilities are being audited, and that will help Council in determining priorities in future budgets. So I look forward to that coming to Council in the coming months. But I support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? There being none, I'll go back to Councillor Bradford to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor. So this agenda item for tonight is really for noting that the Officer Tennis Club's petition has been received and will now be investigated for further consideration at the July Council meeting. My aim in withdrawing this item tonight was to further highlight the issues the club is facing. The facilities are subpar and do not measure up to today's standards. As a council asset located within the major growth area of our Shire, I would like to see the Officer Tennis Club can accommodate the needs of our growing population now and into the future, and be accessible, equitable and fair to all user groups. So tonight, I not only ask you to support the Council's recommendations, but I would also like you to consider, is the current state of this facility acceptable? Is the current state of this facility in our growth area how we want new residents to see our Shire? So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradford. We'll now put this to a vote. Councillors, all those in favour, please raise your hands. I declare the item carried. Thank you. Moving along to item 6.2.4, Notice of Intention, Sealing the Hills, Red Boyd Gembrook Catchment, Special Charge Scheme, withdrawn by Councillor Owen. Councillor Owen to move.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation. Thanks.
May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. Councillor Owen, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross. I wanted to withdraw this item because most of this is in my ward. Even though it's about a K out of the Gembrook Town Centre, it is in my ward, which I'm really pleased to represent some Gembrook residents. But it's a good news story. The sealing of Red Road, Boyd Road, Ramage Lane and Ritchie Street and Williamson Road in Gembrook. So this report proposes to give notice of intention to declare a special charge scheme to be part fund the construction of Red Road, Boyd Road, Ramage Lane, Ritchie Street and Williamson Road, Gembrook. This notice begins the formal consultation process at the commencement of the statutory process that enables council to levy a special charge. The Red Buoyed Catchment is included in the Australian government-funded Sealing the Hills program. A recent survey of the property owners indicated roads in this catchment indicated 85% property owner support. That is going by the completed surveys. And they supported contributing to a scheme from the responses received. Included property owners will receive special benefit as a result of the work including improved resident amenity, reduction in dust and associated health issues, improved drainage, less wear and tear on vehicles, reduced road maintenance costs and overall improved livability. The preliminary estimated cost of the proposed works is $5,868,000, of which $451,000 is proposed to be funded via the proposed special charge contribution received from included property owners. So they're contributing, less than 1/5. So this is a great result for those affected residents. So this will leave an approximate balance of $5,408,000 to be funded from the Australian government grant. So property owner contributions have been assessed based on the benefit gained by each existing developed or vacant allotment, capped at $7,000. Some residents are paying half a benefit unit, which is $3,500. So the survey of property owners within the scheme, there was a total of 67 sent out, was undertaken asking if they would support contributing to a special charge scheme. I do note we only received 20 responses. Of that, 17 said they supported the scheme and 3% didn't. But that means 85% of those people who completed the survey supported it. So that's enough for council to proceed, and I'm very happy about that. This just starts the process. Thanks to the officers involved in this. It's a massive program, but it's great to see we're pushing on with the program and sealing many roads in the hills. I've moved so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll now invite Councillor Ross to speak to this item next.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Owen, for withdrawing this item, as it's really important. For those who don't realise, special charge schemes are a unique part of council that allows council to build so many more roads, council-controlled roads, that wouldn't be able to be budgeted for without a special charge scheme. And this is one of the many road areas that was funded by the federal government at the last election, and hopefully will extend into the future so that we can build more roads. But most importantly, that it probably allows council in some cases to build 50% more roads with the support of the residents who live there. And for anyone who's driven around the hills on a regular basis like I do, you'll know that the made roads are much safer. Usually they have drainage improvements connected to them as well. And for those people who live there, most of them don't mind having them done. Not only is it safer and improve the drainage area, it improves the property values in the area too, because once you've got it made and sealed, different people will look to live there. And as we know, council struggles to find the perfect solution to rain and drought to try and make sure our roads are always, our unsealed roads are at the best condition that they can be. But I must say sealing of the roads is the ultimate solution to it. So therefore I support this. I think it's great. It's wonderful to hear that 85% of the residents have got on board, and hopefully this will continue through this charge scheme. I must say council quite often dedicate a lot of time to these and a lot of effort by experienced people in this area, because if it was rejected by someone, it can go all the way through to VCAT and argued why the special charge scheme wouldn't go ahead. So therefore it needs to be really well thought out, really well detailed, and it must stand up to any legal scrutiny that may come against it. Otherwise it will fall over. Anyway, I support this, and I think up in those hills it is just urgent that we get some of these roads built. and the quicker the better. And if people are going to put in money for them, even better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? I'll just make a couple of comments myself before going back to the mover to summarise. And again, I'd like to reiterate how fantastic this project is. It's really great to see us rolling this out, council meeting after council meeting now. We generally have one of these attached, one of these special child schemes rolling out as part of this federal government package that was delivered from the last federal election. And thank you so much to the federal government for recognising this need across the hills, not just in Cardinia, but across Yarra Ranges too, and $300 million to be delivered over 10 years. I think the entirety was from the start, but it's going to be a wonderful piece of infrastructure upgrade that we will see across our shires, and it's going to really help improve the amenities of our local communities and really supplement. If I look at the statistics written in this report, 92% of the funding for the roads will be provided from council via that grant for the federal government, and so the contribution from residents is 8%, but that extra 8% really helps this go another 8% further, so we end up doing another 8% of roads across the entire shire of this program. It is so worthwhile, and I'm very supportive of it, so wonderful to see. Thank you. I'll now go back to Councillor Owen to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor. Well said. Thank you, other speakers. Councillor Ross, this will mean so much for residents. Williamson Street is quite a dense street with 40 properties, houses and maybe vacant lots, but that will mean so much for the health and amenity for those residents. The other areas, they're larger blocks, but definitely Williamson have got that more smaller density, so you have that benefit with less dust and health effects. So I fully support that. I look forward to this program progressing and coming back to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. We'll now put this to a vote. All councillors in favour, please raise your hands. I declare that carried. Thank you. Next up is item 6.2.5, Major Recreation Facilities Contract Extension, withdrawn by Councillor Kowalczyk. Councillor Kowalczyk to move.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield. I move that Council endorse offering the final 3-year contract extension included in the Major Recreation Facilities contract to Aligned Leisure.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Moore. Councillor Kowalczyk to speak first.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, thank you, Councillor Moore, for your second. Most councillors will be aware, but for those in the community who are not, in 2016, the facility management contract was awarded to Aligned Leisure, and in 2019, the contract was extended for a 3-year term, which expires the 30th of June this year. Council has the option to extend the contract for a final 3-year period, which is what I'm advocating for tonight. The Major Leisure Facilities contract includes management of Cardinia Life, the Pakenham Regional Tennis Centre, 4 seasonal outdoor pools, the Officer Community Hub, and the programming of IYU Recreation Reserve. Over the life of this contract with Aligned, and as a result of a review being undertaken as the previous extension was talked through, there have been a number of services that have been added, which have been welcome additions to Cardinia. The previous performance review found that there was compliance with 39 of the 40 tender specifications, compliance with 10 of the 12 new services added to the contract, the 2 outstanding items being school-related and obviously being impacted by COVID, the provision of inclusive programming, including Aussie Hoops, wheelchair tennis, a blind sport and Rec Victoria partnership program, accessible swimming lessons, and the achievement of accessible communication accreditation. Aligned also raised over $10,000 to donate to the Victorian Bushfire Appeal, and $3,000 was donated to our local Casey Cardinia Foundation from the 2020 fund run. So there's a number of positives there that we've learned coming on the back of that review. I think despite the challenges and the costs that have been passed on to council as a result of the pandemic, that an offer to extend the contract with Aligned Leisure is appropriate at this moment in time. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Moore, to speak to this item next.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk, for withdrawing this item. It is very important to our community that we have a facilitator like Aligned Leisure looking after our sporting facilities. Not only are they a facilitator, but they entrench themselves within our community. They're supportive. They're very supportive with the Together We Can program. There's many other programs that they get into, not just to do with sporting factors. They've got the girls, This Girl Can program. He can, so we can. Gender equality initiatives, International Women's Day, and Share the Dignity campaign. So they're not just facilitators of our facilities, they are a supporter of our community in many, many other ways. I actually visit the Leisure Centre, the Cardinia Life, every day, and I see it firsthand. The quality that they prove there with the facility management. And I've been there ever since the actually unit opened, or the facility opened there, and I've seen good and bad and things but they are really improved every day. And I think the initiatives they put in place are just fantastic what they do. So I don't have any hesitation to support Councillor Kowalczyk, having our councillors get alongside it, because the extension of contract, of course, includes contracts of the Catchment Life Street Team, which you may see, the cars round. The Year 10 Activation Initiative, the Water Smart Education Program, the School Network Forum, and the list goes on. So I can't recommend any better than what I see firsthand, Mr Mayor. So I really support Councillor Kowalczyk in this item, and I have no hesitation to do this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I must say thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk, for withdrawing this item. I must say, since Aligned Leisure came on board in 2016, they've been exceptional in the way that they've tried to dovetail and be very individual towards Cardinia Shire to our needs. I believe we were the first group that they partnered with as a council to run the facilities in Victoria, and they've gone on to run other ones. I must say, talking to other people about who runs their pools and these different services, I'm yet to see anyone who does it better than them. They're really individual, they come out in person, and we've often had the head of the whole organisation come out and present to council here in the past, particularly before the pandemic came. I could only but give feedback about the wonderful things Councillor Moore shared, Councillor Kowalczyk shared some of the programs that they run. I know that they're always interactive, they're always got their ears open, and they're always happy to talk to council about what they can do better and improve upon. All the different models that we've shared over the years to them about how we can improve the place, I know they do take it on board, and we've been able to come up with agreements with them to work on those different models. Anyway, I look forward to the next 3 years to see what they can do. It's great that things are starting to open up again and people are starting to use the facilities instead of sitting there not being able to use them quite as often. I think Cardinia Shire has excellent facilities, being a growth corridor, and I just look forward to seeing more of them used in future. And I know Aligned Leisure are always there as a partner for us, happy to make the residents feel really welcome in their own facilities. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? I'd just like to note quickly that I agree with the sentiments expressed that Aligned Leisure have done a great job managing our facilities in the past. I'm happy to support them moving forward with this 3-year extension. And just as an added bonus, the Mighty Tigers are the best football team around. So thank you, councillors. I'll now go back to Councillor Kowalczyk to summarise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think everyone talked a lot of sense tonight until the Mayor's last comments. But thank you, Mayor, for your comments. Thank you, Councillor Moore and Councillor Ross. I think it's fair to say council have a good working relationship with Aligned Leisure. And I think Councillor Ross touched on that. The open communication between the organisations plays a key part in that. And from everything I've heard from our officers and from our GMs who deal with this contractor quite closely, that is the case, and certainly a key for that moving forward. From the most recent review, we learned that Aligned were meeting our requirements and in some cases exceeding them. So from a review perspective, that certainly covered that off. And Councillor Moore, you touched on the social equity platforms that they're involved in, such as having representation on the Together We Can roundtable group. So I just think that's really important. And also a lot of the staff are embedded in the community as well, which is really, really important to me too. Just in summary here, Mayor, the current contract has been significantly affected by COVID-19 with restrictions impacting operations, as well as slow return rates across memberships, swim school and the stadium. Despite these challenges, I believe that Aligned have met Council's expectations as facility management contractor, and we should offer them the 3-year extension. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. And councillors, we will now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I declare that carried. Thank you. Next up is item 6.3.1, Community Capital Works Grants Program Policy, withdrawn by Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council adopt the updated Community Capital Works Grant Policy and endorse the CEO or her delegate to make any required editorial change to the policy, provided they do not alter the intent of the policy.
Okay, so we need to revisit that.
Suggest to Councillor Moore only the first stop point as well.
Okay, Councillor Moore, Doug Evans, our Manager of Governance, has just pointed out that that he thinks you're referring to an older version of the document that was presented, and just the first dot point is relevant for the actual notice. The second's not so. Maybe we'll just clarify that so we know what we're moving. But thank you, Councillor Moore.
What I'm moving there is adopt the updated Community Capital Works Grant Policy.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Kowalczyk. Thank you. No, don't apologise. It just sometimes this happen. Councillor Moore, I'll go back to you to speak to this item first.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry about the confusion. This update of this policy follows the outcome of an internal audit conducted by Crowe Australasia. Several amendments to the Community Capital Works Grant Policy are proposed to improve the program and reduce the risks, and the risks are the problem. Overall, the audit determines that under a control rating that there was an adequate control environment in most areas, with moderate risk improvement opportunities identified which require corrective action, and they are as follows. The following items are the risky ones. The risk is that councillors are included in the grant assessment panel and have direct communication with staff regarding the grants, and that's the major risk. The action taken, council will no longer be on the formal assessment panel. Councillors' questions, communications regarding grants and applications to be channelled through the CEO, the General Manager, Livable Communities. Noting also, briefings 1 or 2 are required to provide to councillors by the council officers, at briefings that is. That is to eliminate the speed of delivery. We always get rushed into some of these policies, some of these grant policies, and this is to eliminate the rushing and improve the funding opportunities. So it's a great opportunity there. And I do welcome my fellow councillors to make comment. Mr Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. I'll go to the seconder to speak next, Councillor Kowalczyk.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield, and thanks, Councillor Moore, for withdrawing this item tonight, because I think it's really, really important to highlight. As you mentioned, a number of these changes have come on the back of an internal review, and a number of risks that were found were medium risk, and so those are being dealt with in due course. But the one that was considered a high risk was councillors being involved in the formal assessment panel, and I think it's appropriate that we change that tonight. I understand that some may see this change as a negative because councillors are now at arm's length from the initial stages of the program, but I trust that most councillors will see that the increased transparency is good and allows officers to manage the applications as instructed by the policy. It's just about good governance. It means that we can be more confident that we're overseeing a fair and transparent process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. Do I have any other councillors that would like to speak to this item? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I totally agree with the changes on this policy after great lengthy discussion we had this afternoon. It's important that we are informed before decisions are made, and the officers will give us time at briefing to establish what the choices are and what decision council will be allowed to make, and this is great because we need that extended time, and the officers are very good at what they do, so they'll present it really well to us, and then we'll make those decisions. So we're still involved in a different capacity. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Do I have any other councillors? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo my fellow councillors' sentiments on this issue. What this will do, in brief, is it will the improvement in the policy. It ensures that councillors are distanced from influence, so therefore we can never be accused of influencing decisions. But what we will have in its place of sitting on as councillors within the panel will be when it's the draft form will come to council for councillors in a briefing to have a look over, to be able to ask questions about it with full transparency in front of everybody. So therefore we'll have a good understanding of the process and why they've come about with the decisions they have. I think this is far I think it's got a great improvement to it, because the worst thing that could ever happen to this wonderful scheme would be it would be brought into disrepute by people thinking that the wrong thing was done by the different decisions that were made. We want to make sure it stood the test of time so far. It's been there as long as I've been on council, and I think far before I came. And it gives out up to, some years it's given out, I think, $600,000 worth of community grants to the community, which in most cases has been supported by the community by putting money towards those grants as well, which has ensured that literally tens of millions of dollars of extra infrastructure have been built into our community groups. So therefore, this needed robust change. It needed to be beyond disrepute. And full transparency and an improvement is just what was needed. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? There being none, I'll go back to the mover, Councillor Moore, to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor. I must note that there's no financial implications on the proposed amendments to the Capital Works, Community Capital Works grant policy. The audit identified several control measures, I said before, that could be put into place and strengthen the program. And these have been included in the proposed updated Community Capital Works grant policy. These upgrades establish a clear and definite guidelines for the policy to upgrade. We still, as councillors, have the final say to represent our community in this place. That's good governance. And we must reassure them tonight, the community, that there'll be a fair outcome for all. So I think this policy is in place for that reason, and I think we're going to show true transparency for this. So I ask my fellow councillors to vote accordingly. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. And councillors, we will now put this to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands. I declare the item carried. Thank you. Next item is 6.3.2 Neighbourhood House Policy 2022 to 2025, withdrawn by Councillor Moore. Councillor Moore to move.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll see if I can get this one right, Mayor. I move that Council adopt the revised Neighbourhood House Policy 2022 to 2025, and note that the draft 2022 to 23 council budget for exhibition includes funding for the neighbourhood houses. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Looks perfect to me. Can I have a seconder, please, councillors? Councillor Ross. Back to you, Councillor Moore, to speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross, for your second there. One thing I must say, this falls back on the celebrating last week of the neighbourhood houses. We had neighbourhood house last week, so it's good timing for this policy to come to place. The proposed neighbourhood house policy aligns with and underpins the neighbourhood house funding agreement, which the neighbourhood houses have got together and agreed to, which I think is a fantastic thing to have. Neighbourhood houses, of course, are the forefront of service provision, playing a significant role in the community development and social equality by addressing specific social needs for the community they are situated in. I know these neighbourhood houses, and they do a fantastic job in our community. There are we have eight houses in place, and they actually come with different names, believe it or not. There are the Beacon Hills Neighbourhood Centre, the Bunyip District Community House, the Cockatoo Community House, the Emerald Community House, the Lang Lang Community Centre, Living and Learning Pakenham, Outlook Community Centre, and the Upper Beaconsfield Community Centre. They provide place for our community to be able to support, receive information, and have learning opportunities, and participate in social programs as well. So they're right across our community in many areas, and I've visited many of these community houses quite often. But the key changes within this policy include update the department titles and related document titles, changes to fund distributions, which is important, based on the community needs, dedicated council liaison officer, updated neighbourhood house principles to reflect different governance models and service delivery linkages to the council livability plan. And the neighbourhood houses are connected to our livability plan through and through if you read the document. I'll go to my seconder now, Mayor, if you may, and leave something for my seconder to have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore, and I'll now go to Councillor Ross to speak.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Moore, for withdrawing this item. I must say, Cardinia Shire would be much poorer without our community houses. They provide a low-cost service base for many things that if they weren't run through a community house and supported, that just wouldn't exist in our community. They make services very much affordable to be delivered locally. They always are welcoming. I must say, during one of the great opportunities I had when I was mayor was to go and visit community houses that weren't in my ward. And when you got to go and listen to what they do, and I must say, one of the most outstanding ones to deal with was the one up at Emerald, who run a myriad of other services well outside of the average ones that they do. And they do an amazing job. And they basically meet the needs of the community in that area. And I must say, it is really great when you hear anyone who doesn't truly understand what they do should go and have a talk to a community house. They'll find out all the different services they deliver. And quite a lot of the people who work there are volunteers and put their time in. I must say that it is wonderful that we can continue to support them, and we need to do that. And it's good that we encourage the government of all levels to support them as well, as much as they can, because these are the sort of groups who do directly touch the community on a day-to-day basis and not from some office base, because they get out there and they meet people. I know most community houses will often, if they can't meet the need, they'll redirect people to the service that they need. And for most of them, they'll actually deliver the service themselves. Even if they don't, they can't do it, they'll make a way that they can actually help that person. Anyway, I'm yet to hear of people turned away from them. They do a great job and they should be encouraged. And I'll go back and leave some other kind words from other people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item next? Councillor Bradford.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Moore, for withdrawing this item. Neighbourhood houses, especially in the last couple of years, have really been supporting our communities on a level that they weren't previously supporting our communities. And so it's important that as a council we are supporting the neighbourhood houses, and so it was good to assess what's been going on, who needs what, and make those adjustments so that they can continue to play the important role that they are playing within our community. So I support this. Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Councillor Bradford. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Moore, for presenting this. I think it's a great policy. I think it's we're always updating it. I think one of the key things that has come out of this, out of Neighbourhood House, is it's multicultural, and that's been really, really important, that we help everyone in our whole community. And some of the things that they do help them with is literacy, budgeting, language, training for work, you know, doing the paperwork if they need assistance with paperwork, also helping them to apply for their learner's permit and their driver's licence. And they're just a few things I think that are really, really important, that the services that they run, they are there for the community, and so I will be supporting this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Owen.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, councillors. Last year, when this policy came before council, I had a number of neighbourhood centres speak to me and the CEO, and I think, or there might have been the acting CEO. And I met with Living Learning Pakenham because they raised concerns regarding funding. So I'm really pleased that that was resolved as part of this and the funding agreements associated with that. But I want to thank all the neighbourhood houses that we have in Cardinia, and I've had some involvement with all of them over my time. But I want to acknowledge Upper Beaconsfield Community Centre. They recently had their AGM, and they were really concerned that they may not be able to form a committee because of, you know, the lack of volunteers and retirements as such. So it was great that less than a month ago they formed a full committee, which is really great. And Beaconsfield's had some challenges in recent times as well with a new licensing agreement, etc. But I believe that was all resolved. So thanks to all our neighbourhood houses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? There being none, I'll go back to Councillor Moore to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross, for the second. Thank you, Councillor Ryan and Radford and Owen for the wonderful words of support for this particular item. It's a great policy. I know the extensive consultation process we went through to get to this point. The individual interviews with independent consultants, a survey, for instance, a written feedback on the first draft, a written feedback on the final draft. So it's been extensive to get to this point. And the major aspect of this is acquiring a funding equality throughout this process. And I think that's very important to understand, because they all do the same job. Some are bigger than others, so therefore we've got to look at the policy and look at their funding opportunities, what we have to do. I would, through this point, like to thank the committees, the staff, the volunteers, our own staff, our liaison officer that works through this, from all these neighbourhood houses, because we are committed. We have been committed and we are committed to fund these very important community organisations, and their educational programs are short of none, and they are changing programs all the time to suit the needs of the community wherever I go. So it's certainly an important arm, certainly an important part of our community to have these neighbourhood houses in full flight and us to fund them. So thank you, councillors, for your support and your kind words. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. We'll now put this to a vote. All councillors in favour, please raise your hands. I declare that carried. Thank you. Next item is item 6.4.2, Cardinia Shire Audit and Risk Committee, ARC, for presentation to Council by the CEO, withdrawn by Councillor Kowalczyk.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, I move that Council note the report for the Audit and Risk Committee activities presented to Council by the Chair, Michael Said.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Bradford. I'll go back to Councillor Kowalczyk to speak to this item first.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bradford, for your second. The membership of the Audit and Risk Committee is comprised of independent members, as well as myself and Councillor Davies as councillor representatives. Previous members have included Homi Bergerji, Councillor Owen, and of course the late Councillor Brown was on the committee as well. Under Section 54 of the Local Government Act 2020, the Audit and Risk Committee must prepare a biannual report, which the CEO must table at the following council meeting. This is the third of these reports and covers 3 Audit and Risk Committee meetings since the formation of the new council in November 2020. The key objective and purpose of the Audit and Risk Committee, as stated in the ARC Charter, is to provide support to Council in discharging its oversight responsibilities related to financial and performance reporting, risk management, fraud prevention systems and control, internal and external audit assurance services, and Council's compliance with its policies and legislative and regulatory requirements. I just want to encourage any interested community members to read the report. It is quite detailed, but I think you'll feel assured and you'll feel safe that the Audit and Risk Committee sort of ensures that Council is covering off all its requirements. So I'll leave it at that for now, Mayor. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk. I'll go to the seconder, Councillor Bradford, to speak next.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing further to add. I seconded because Councillor Kowalczyk is on this committee and I knew it would give you a good opportunity to discuss what this committee does for the council. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradford. Would any other councillors like to speak to this report? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I must say the outgoing chair, Homi, Mr. Homi, did a wonderful job. He instilled leadership in the chair role, and I must say his presentations were absolutely thorough every single time he came to council. He kept us well informed. He answered all of our questions. And I must say this Audit and Risk Committee I was on years and years ago when I first got on council, and we used to have Vago attend every single one of our meetings. And they basically had to sit in on it because at the time council was in a position where we were outside the acceptable rating levels in certain areas of say, debt compared to what we were bringing in rates. Needless to say, over a 10-year period, council managed to keep debt at the same level. Rates were slowly going up, so the percentage went down and we came within inside an acceptable position, so therefore Vago didn't need to attend anymore. So council's come a really long way. For those who don't realise what this group does, they basically go over all the policies that we have and all the different areas on council, and they look to see what the risks are in those, and they try and improve them all the time. So they're aiming for green. If it goes to yellow or amber, it needs to be improved and worked upon. But what you like to see on council is no red. You like to see all green. And if it does tip it a little bit on orange, that's a wonderful opportunity to improve those things. These policies get reviewed I'm pretty sure it's on a 3-year cycle that they go through and they look at all of them. So it is a constant reviewing, looking over, auditing of all of these areas. And I must say it's a wonderful learning curve for different councillors to be on it. I know I had it was really enlightening to myself, and I encourage others to get on if they haven't been on before. It certainly does teach a lot about the organisation, and I just would like to thank those who have been on the Audit Committee for their time on the Audit Committee. It can be rather thick at times as you go through different policies and you look and you read and you learn as you go. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ross. Would any other councillors like to speak to this item? I'll now go back to the mover, Councillor Kowalczyk, to summarise.
Thank you, Mayor Springfield. Thank you also to Councillor Bradford for your second and Councillor Ross for your comments. Very much appreciated. I don't have much further to add. I just want to briefly thank all the members of the Audit and Risk Committee for their hard work and diligence in ensuring Cardinia Shire Council meets its reporting, management and legislative requirements. I also want to thank the CEO and all of the officers who respond and report to the ARC. In my experience, they've done so in a professional and timely manner, and all of the Audit and Risk Committee members always say to me in every meeting that they're impressed with our staff, so that's always a good thing to hear. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kowalczyk, and we'll now put this to a vote. All councillors in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried. Thank you. That concludes discussion of the item withdrawn. Are there any matters listed in the agenda that any councillors may wish to also debate? If not, can I have a mover, please, to adopt the officer's recommendations for the remaining items? Councillor Moore, and the seconder, please. Councillor Kowalczyk. All those in favour, please raise your hand. I declare that carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is councillor reports. Councillors, are there any matters that you may wish to report? Councillor Ross, you go first.
I'd like to, on Saturday I attended the officer. Oh, were you going to talk about that, Tammy? I'll let you talk about it. I'll let you talk about it, Tammy. I'll just stop right there. I'll let you have speak about it. It's all right.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. We'll go to Councillor Bradford next, just in case. Councillor Bradford, over to you.
Sorry, Councillor Ross. I was really proud of this event and I was really excited to be talking about it. I thought, no! I just wanted to begin with that today marks the first day of National Volunteer Week. So I just want to say thank you to all our volunteers across all of our organisations within the Shire. We thank you for everything that you do. And as I said, in Cardinia Shire, we have so many amazing and dedicated volunteers who have also been volunteering for so many years. And this past month, I've had the opportunity to attend a number of events, but I wanted to highlight two in particular. One being the event on Saturday, which was the World War II Officer Roll of Honour unveiling. And we have a couple of members here in the gallery today who had a direct descendant, a direct sibling of one of these members on the roll. So that was really exciting. And what's so special about that is that officer doesn't have an RSL. So this is done by a volunteer and a couple of volunteers. So I really wanted to shout out to Penny Harris-Jennings for doing the research of seeing who should be on this role and acknowledged. Carol and Rob Porter, who are constantly doing things in officer and supporting this. And, they also help with the Dawn Anzac Service in Officer, which is hosted by the Officer District Community Association and the Officer Junior Football Club. And again, it's all volunteers, there's no RSL, and these volunteers just put hours and hours of dedicated time into ensuring that the servicemen and women of Officer are remembered every year. And I just really wanted to do a big shout out to those two events that I've attended in the past month, especially being National Volunteer Week, of the fantastic job that they do. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bradford. Councillors, I'll go. Councillor Ross, would you like to have? Do you have any other items you'd like to speak to now? That
I'll just continue.
Yes, please. Over to you.
The same theme, Councillor Bradford. I must say, the plaque that they put up was absolutely outstanding, and it was put up by the Berwick Woodworkers group, and they wouldn't accept any money for making it for the group. It's absolutely outstanding. I must say, for those who don't know the Berwick Woodworkers Group, they actually make literally hundreds of presents for children every year who don't get Christmas presents in some cases. And they made this honour board, and I don't think they've made them before, but they made one and it looks absolutely wonderful. It'll stand the test of time. It was a real gap in the officer area where you had one board which was for the World War I veterans, but there was nothing for the World War II veterans. And the World War II veterans had twice as many people from the area went to the Second World War as the First World War. So just to put their names up in honour of those people, particularly the ones who had passed away and died. I think there was one family who had had 3 of their boys die in the war. So for them to be remembered in perpetuity at the place is really important. And particularly when there can be some living relatives still alive who knew those people, is great to do it. I must say, the outstanding work that was done by the historian who went and discovered all of the incidentals about what needed to go on the board. And while people were still alive, the research that the lady did to go around and talk to all the people who were still living that might know different bits and pieces, or someone who has missed out and mightn't be on the board, was wonderful. There was a whole team of people, and the Country Women's Association did a wonderful job giving us something to eat and drink afterwards. I actually commented to people that the Country Women's Association do an amazing job. They do every single, everything they do is done with perfection to honour the people who they are presenting it to. And I must say, we often go as councillors to events where they're the ones who put on some food afterwards. Absolutely every sandwich is cut to perfection. Every single slice that they make is done like it's going in a show for an award. And for someone with a sweet tooth, I certainly do enjoy myself. I make sure that they know that I appreciate the food that they make for us. But all in all, that was a wonderful event. And I think everyone who went was absolutely honoured to be there and thankful. And in the room, I noticed Councillor Cameron came along and Councillor Ryan came along as well. And we all had a chat to the people who had put all this together, and just thank them very much for doing it on behalf of the local community. Anyway, that's all I'll supplement.
Thank you. Councillor Ross, would any other councillors like to report on any matters? Councillor Moore.
Oh, Carol. Okay.
Thank you, councillors. I'll direct the meeting here. Councillor Moore, you may speak next.
It's a bit of a battle here, Mayor.
Look, I know we're all flying Friday. We all have so many great issues to speak of, but
And they've probably got a lot
Moore,
more important things to say than myself, Mayor. But I've been to many things recently. There's been 2 walks around the lake for charity. You know, one was for the Carol Clay walk. There was a few councillors there on the day, which was really great to see, and that was quite enjoyable day. And the other walk around the lake was the walk to defeat MND, which was very well attended. It was a really great event put on by the family of one of these sufferers of MND. And I know my good friend Rolly Harmon had this disease, and I watched him die very sadly from this debilitating disease. But anyway, I'll go on to something else, which is a I know other councillors went to this, but I'm going to bring it up. Was the Food and Tourism launch for the West Gippsland Progress Association, which is just a fantastic day. Morning tea at Cannibal Creek Winery with Kirsten looking after us there, and it was a big crowd. There was a really great launch, very, very well done by and Barry Crees is the president, and Erin Paulson. Greg Paulson used to work here, and Erin Paulson is the secretary of that fantastic organisation that are driving this this area from, it's along the railway towns mainly, so it's Narnagoon, Tynong, Garfield and Bunyip in that region, and sort of driving that food area and the tourism for that. So it was a great launch, and I know financially supported by council, and by council staff were there in abundance. looking after us, Anne-Marie and Bronwyn Fleming in particular. So it was really good to see the Mayor was there too as well, of course. But it was a great launch, and that was one of the great things, I think, of the last couple of weeks for me. So it was good to see us all there in full flight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Ryan, would you have any insights to report on? Just rather than toss it backwards and forwards, you may go next, please.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Yes, Councillor Owen was directing me over there, and it is your position to direct the councillors. So, yes, for the last month, as residents are aware that we all do different things within the community that we're invited to, and some of the events that we are there together. I said living and learning, and it was Vic Pole, I think, and Councillor Owen was there as well. And the Men's Shed had donated this beautiful box that had a description on what this beautiful person had done, and I'll leave the rest to Councillor Owen because he was involved in it as well. But the Men's Shed did a wonderful job. It was a great presentation. Jason Wood was there as well, and quite a few other people, and it was a great event. So, as I said, I'll leave the rest to Councillor Owen on that one. The dawn service, very important service for everybody to, whether you can attend physically or virtually. Always lovely, the dawn event for Anzac Day. There was probably at least 2,500 people in Pakenham alone that attended, and it was wonderful to see that people were coming out now that we can come out for those sort of services, and meeting up with the veterans. I always find that that's really wonderful to have a conversation with them about how they're doing, how they see life in general, and it's always an interesting conversation. And of course, going back to the RSL and having breakfast, and the CWA doing the breakfast, absolutely wonderful. So I commend them. It's a really important identity. The official opening of the Orange Door access point at Tumar Community Centre in reference to family violence, and that's a really, really important event, and an honour to be there. And there were several other councillors that were there, and I'm sure there's other councillors that would like to speak on that one as well. Then I went from there to Living and Learning. A couple of other councillors were there as well. Honourable Jason Wood made an announcement in reference to the Multicultural Hub, and so we're just waiting to see what happens from there. At the moment, it's just in the conversations, and we'll just hope that it goes through with the plans with council as well. The CWA, we went for a walk, as Councillor Moore had said, in reference to around the lake, in remembrance of Carol Clay. She did a lot for the community. She was a member of the CWA, but she also started this walk where she carried a bucket of water, a small bucket of water, to present to the community that, you know, we need to think about some of the underprivileged countries that don't have the luxury of water that we have, and so it was making the community aware. So that was a really, really important event, and sadly missed that she wasn't there, but I think she would be very pleased that we were there to represent that walk. And of course, to all the mothers during Mother's Day, I hope they all had a wonderful day. And I did a presentation for women 60 and over, and talking about events like Forget Me Not, which is in reference to people who are experiencing early onset of dementia. And we talked about Ageing Well magazine. We talked about other events that are there for women in 60 and over, and what else they could be involved in getting some of their ideas for our community. and the unveiling of the plaque. I was there on Saturday too. So that's my list of the things that I've done for the last month. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I'll go to Councillor Kowaczyk next.
Thank you. I think we know someone in the room wants to be last, so we'll let him go last. I just want to mention the picnic in the park. That I went to with thanks to the Pakenham Hills Residents Group for their invitation. A fantastic little community event was put on primarily to get people to come together and also for the enjoyment of kids in that local community. So that was really nice to attend that. Obviously, we had Anzac Days, as Councillor Ryan mentioned, and I want to thank the Dandenong RSL, who are all volunteers. Thank you very much for putting that on. It was fantastic. Obviously, we've had a number of court advisory group members, and so it's been good to start to get them back in person. We had the social housing tour that our officers took us on. A number of councillors went on that. Really fantastic to see a number of different social housing initiatives throughout the Shire, some that have gone really well, some that are experiencing some challenges. So really great to go on that. Obviously, we had the official opening of the Orange Door in Cardinia by the Minister Gabrielle Williams. Thank you, Councillor Ryan, for mentioning that. That was fantastic and a much needed service. And obviously that official opening has been delayed for some time now, but that's been open for a little bit. But we really need a lot more services like that in Pakenham, so that was really good to see. I've been attending the Pakenham CBD and Railway Precinct safety meetings, which have been organised by Vic Pole, and Councillor Owen obviously is involved through his role as both a councillor and a police officer, but Council is doing its bit in ensuring that we're getting community members there to check in with them and ask what we can do to improve safety in those areas, particularly in line with the development and the LXRP projects that are going on there. So that's really important. I mean, obviously we'd like more local traders to attend, but that's been going quite well. So I want to thank the community for their involvement in that. The walk to defeat MND was really great. Councillor Moore, thank you for touching on that. And also on the weekend, most recently, a number of councillors attended Ida Hobbit Day. So just want to thank Proud to Play. I want to thank all the council officers involved for putting on that day and all the sporting groups that came out to that, because that was really, really fantastic. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kowaczyk. Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. In the last month, I've been fortunate enough to go to a few functions. So, as Councillor Ryan suggested, Anzac Day was fantastic at Kuirup for the dawn service, and it was outstanding to see how many kids were there, school kids. It was just amazing. And the following day, the next day, Tuesday, I also went to a little ceremony that the Lang Lang RSL put on for the school kids, and the grade 6 kids were great. Had a wander through the RSL at Lang Lang, which is just a tiny little room, and didn't want to leave. They were so enthralled in looking at the pictures and all the memorabilia and everything. So they were two really great things to attend. And again, went to the West Gippsland Progress Association launch, the putting up of the plaque on Saturday for the officer return servicemen. Yeah, that was quite moving. The other thing, Lang Lang Rodeo was finally held after 2 years in absence, and it was outstanding. They raised over $54,000, a lot of which will go back into the improving of facilities there. They've got a lot of work that they need to do, and they also held a very successful dog show and raised over $7,000 with the dog show. So that again will go back into the facilities. And I think that's about it for me in the last month. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I'll now invite Councillor Owen to speak if he would like to.
Thank you. I just didn't want to take over other council reports, so thank you. On the 1st of April, I know I should have reported at last meeting, but I attended the City of Casey. The Beaconsfield Progress Association, along with Penny Harris Jennings, is wanting to do a heritage project regarding the Beaconsfield Avenue of Honour nameplates for the servicemen and women for World War I. So those nameplates were never displayed, but they're about 90 years old. And they've been sitting at the City of Casey for a couple of decades. and they've really looked after them, City of Casey. So working with the BPA, the Beaconsfield Progress Association, the Berwick-Pakenham Historical Society, we want to have a heritage project to have those nameplates displayed, hopefully at the Pakenham Museum. So looking forward to that. That was great to see them and inspect them, and they're in good condition, so that's good. On the 13th of April, I attended the Upper Beaconsfield Community Centre where they had the AGM, and a new president and committee was elected, and that was really great news because there was concerns that a committee may not be formed, so that was really great. They've got a new coordinator, a new early years coordinator as well, so that's really good. So on the 16th of April, I'll say this wrong, I went to the officer at Gurdwara Vasaki, probably wrong, Foundation, which is the celebration of spring harvest. So that's at the Sikh Temple in Officer. That was really good, and Councillor Kwazik was there with me. Councillor Ryan, thank you for mentioning that event at Cardinia Men's Shed and Living Learning Pakenham. Definitely the Men's Shed has been making these medal boxes for returned service men and women and also retired police. And they presented a medal box to the former Chief Commissioner Mick Miller's family, who was there. It was a great presentation. I also attended Anzac Day services on the Sunday before Anzac Day, Beaconsfield, and then Officer and Upper Beaconsfield on Anzac Day. Thanks for everyone involved. Had the great pleasure of attending Beaconsfield Primary School, where I spoke to grade 3 and 4 students on the role of local government and council. So that was really great seeing those students there. I also attended the local history reference group, the Casey Cardinia Local History Reference Group that Councillor Ryan and I are both on. But they talked about the online Heritage Festival that they had during May, on the 2nd of May. But they had a number of presentations, but it's all recorded on the Casey Cardinia Library website, and everyone can have a look at that and see what was presented on the day. It was really good. I just want to acknowledge the Casey Cardinia Library Service. Obviously, they're being decommissioned, but I want to thank those officers, Michelle McLean and Heather Arnold, who've been really supporting the Heritage Group, and they are committed to continue to support in a volunteer role because the local history group is independent of the library. But I do hope that the new library might, the new library service, in whatever form that will still be in touch with this local history group. But I just wanted to thank Michelle and Heather. The Berwick-Pakenham Historical Society, they've released a new book, Pakenham Then and Now. It's $30, and hopefully they might have a book launch soon, but it's really good. Some great photos of old Pakenham and new Pakenham, where buildings were or whatever. So it's a really good publication. Last week I went to the awarding of the Upper Beaconsfield Citizen of the Year. 2 winners, husband and wife, Ian and Debbie Pinney. They are fantastic people of Upper Beaconsfield, heavily involved in the sporting community, CFA, also amazing support work during COVID and Scouts, among other things. And finally, I attended the Casey Cardinia Foundation meeting recently, where it's official now that the foundation has changed its name to the Cardinia Foundation. And also in relation to, there was a resolution that the Shire of Cardinia and the City of Casey in Clause 2 of the existing constitution of the company is replaced with the following words, the Shire of Cardinia. So the foundation moved to go along with being Cardinia only, and I appreciate the work that the CEO's done in this space. So we'll move on with that new model and new direction, which is very exciting for the Cardinia Foundation. But we want to acknowledge the City of Casey for working with us over a number of years while we were the Casey Cardinia Foundation. So that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Owen, and thank you to all councillors for presenting your reports from the last few weeks and month of the wonderful activities that are happening in the community. I'm just going to add a couple of things beyond what was mentioned today. And look, just to mention the Anzac Day, such a memorable day, such an important day in our calendar of events. So Emerald always does a fantastic dawn service. So just my hats off to the group at the RSL out there. there. And Cockatoo had a wonderful, beautiful morning service. It was a lovely day for it. Just would like to mention, back at the end of April there, several of us attended the official opening of the Orange Door access point in Pakenham, which is such an important service for us to deliver for our community. It was there, helped launch by Minister Gabrielle Williams. It was wonderful to see the support from the state government there, and our local member Jordan Cronelli was there as well to help with the opening. Just a quick mention to yesterday, had 2 events on yesterday which we attended as the Ida Hobbit event down at James Bath Reserve. It was a wonderful, beautiful day there. Sporting activities, inclusiveness for all, and it's wonderful to see the love and support in these events there that's given from the community, and everyone should know that everybody should feel safe and inclusive in our society. And so it's important to highlight these things. And just lastly, we had a Meet the Artist event at the Cardinia Cultural Centre. Afterwards, John Shivakolsky, he's been a really well recognised artist for many years, has his beautiful exhibition that's down there. Wonderful event, and it was interesting. He was speaking to it after I'd done a bit of an opening for him. And he's speaking to it. He's speaking of his, of his hurt and pain from the loss of his son many years ago, his young son, Tristan. And as he's speaking to it, I've started to realise, I think I know who he's talking about. I think he's talking about Tristo, and I hadn't realised until that point when we're on stage and we're talking to everyone. But Tristo was a good friend of mine back then. It was one of the first, when we were 24 years old, would be back in 2004. I had no idea the connection, but that had tragically taken from this world way too young at 24, and a really brilliant young man, and a sad loss, and one of the first experiences like that I think myself and many of my friends had experienced. But it was kind of fitting just the connection that I hadn't realised until that point in time, that was who this artist was speaking of, that reflected in a lot of his artwork, and was his inspiration for a lot of his projects there. So it was. I encourage all the community to come down and see his exhibition while it's still there, down at the Cardinia Cultural Centre. John Shivakolsky was really great artist. But thank you, everyone, and it's great to hear everyone's reports, and great to hear our community and being active in our community out there. Moving along with our agenda, councillors. Presentations of petitions, and I just ask if any councillors have any petitions they wish to present. I note there is none, and so, councillors, that concludes tonight's meeting. So thank you all for your interest and attendance, and I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you.